If you look out your window right now, depending on, where you are, you might see a skyline of glass and steel,
Yeah.
or you might see a paved highway, or maybe just a quiet suburban street.
Yeah, the modern world.
Right, exactly. And it all feels so incredibly permanent, doesn't it? Like this is the definitive final version of Earth.
It's a very comforting illusion, definitely.
It is. But I want you, the listener, to imagine that modern landscape dissolving, just completely breaking down.
Like time-lapse photography, but in reverse.
Exactly. Imagine the asphalt stripping away, the concrete buildings just sinking into the dirt, and the bedrock itself folding over like a heavy blanket.
That's a powerful image.
We are going to take you out of the comfort of this modern world today and drop you straight into the dizzying, terrifying abyss of deep geological time.
It really is a profound shift in perspective. I mean, we are so conditioned to look at human history as this linear progression.
A straight line of progress.
Right. We picture this triumphant, unbroken march from primitive caves straight to the cosmos. But the geological record, the actual dirt and stone beneath those highways, it suggests a narrative that is infinitely more complex. Frankly, far more unsettling.
And that's exactly what we're doing on this deep dive today. We are exploring a fascinating, sometimes deeply controversial collection of archaeological anomalies, geological impossibilities, and evolutionary data.
And we are looking at primary sources and historical records impartially. We're just looking at what was found in the dirt.
Exactly, no spin. The through line connecting all of this is a singular paradigm-shattering hypothesis. The idea that humanity, as we know it, is not the first advanced civilization on Earth.
To really understand the gravity of what that means, we first have to ground ourselves in the timeline we were all taught in school.
Right, the textbook version.
Yeah, the standard textbook model. It's very neat, very tidy. It tells us that genetically, the ancestors of gorillas and chimpanzees split from the line leading to humans roughly 4 to 8 million years ago.
Okay, so that's the early hominids hanging out in the trees, eventually coming down to the savanna.
Exactly. Then we get the first real diversion within the genus Homo around 2.4 million years ago with Homo habilis.
The handyman.
Right, the first confirmed tool users in Africa. But we have to be clear here. We are talking about tools that are essentially just rocks smashed against other rocks to create a sharp edge.
The old one stone tools, right?
Right.
We're not talking about forging metal or anything. We're talking about hitting a pebble so it breaks in half.
Correct. That's the peak of technology 2.4 million years ago. Then comes Homo erectus about 1.8 million years ago.
And they were the ones who mastered fire.
Yes, they master fire, they start walking upright more efficiently, they spread out a bit. And finally, modern Homo sapiens, anatomically modern humans, meaning us, arrive on the scene a mere 150,000 to 300,000 years ago.
Which is like the blink of an eye in geological terms.
Yeah, it really is. And according to this standard model, everything we consider civilization, cities, metallurgy, written language, complex machinery, agriculture, all of that happened in just the last few thousand years.
Wow.
Yeah, everything before roughly 10,000 BC is just bands of hunter-gatherers trying to survive the ice ages.
Yeah, let's unpack this. I always try to visualize the sheer scale of the Earth's history because the textbook timeline is just a tiny sliver. Think of human history as the absolute thinnest layer of frosting on a colossal multi-layered cake.
I like that analogy.
Right. And today, we're ignoring the frosting entirely. We're drilling a core sample straight into the cake itself because the Earth is dynamic. Think of tectonic plates like a massive global conveyor belt.
Subduction zones and seafloor spreading, yeah.
Exactly. New crust is formed at the bottom of the ocean. It pushes outward and eventually crashes into another plate and gets shoved down into the Earth's mantle to melt. The Earth is literally destroying its own surface, recycling the evidence of whatever lived on it.
That recycling process is recorded in stratigraphy, which is the study of rock layers. And stratigraphy shows us that the Earth is incredibly volatile over deep time. Land masses aren't static.
Not at all.
There's ample geological evidence that the entire area of Great Britain, for example, was once submerged under at least 1,700 feet of water.
Wait, 1,700 feet? That covers everything but the highest mountains in the UK?
It does. Geologists track something termed the Northern Drift, which consists of thick beds of sand, gravel, and clay strewn all over the submerged land.
So oceanic deposits just sitting on top of England.
Right. And then tectonic forces shifted, and the British Isles simply rose again from the sea, carrying those oceanic deposits up with them.
That is just wild to picture.
And it's not an isolated incident. What is now Sicily once lay deep beneath the Mediterranean, eventually thrusting 3,000 feet up above sea level. The Sahara Desert, with its burning dunes, was once a thriving ocean floor.
Yeah, I've read about that. We find, whale fossils right in the middle of the Egyptian desert.
Exactly. It's staggering. The ground we walk on is a massive recycling engine.
But here is the core issue, the absolute friction point of this entire topic we're diving into today. What happens when that geological conveyor belt spits up something that shouldn't be there?
You're referring to the forensic contradictions buried in those deep layers.
Exactly. What happens when you're digging into a layer of rock that geologists absolutely know is, say, 2 million years old, and a definitively manufactured object just falls out of it?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the mainstream scientific community reacts.
Right, because the systemic reaction isn't to say, oh, wow, our timeline is wrong. The reaction is almost universally to dismiss the object.
They are classified as out-of-place artifacts or oparts. The scientific assumption is almost always that the dating must be wrong, or the object somehow fell into a fissure, or it's just an elaborate hoax.
And, to be fair, the scientific method requires extraordinary evidence for extraordinary claims. If I find a plastic watch buried in my backyard beneath a dinosaur bone, I'm going to assume my dog dug a hole and buried it there, not that a T-Rex was wearing a Casio.
That's a very grounded way to look at it. If you find an anomaly, the most logical first step is to assume a mundane explanation.
Right. But what we're looking at today isn't just one plastic watch. It's a mountain of anomalies from the sources we're reviewing. Tangible, physical objects that completely defy the chronological emergence of intelligent life.
The sheer volume of these discoveries really does force you to pause. It begins to paint a picture of highly intelligent activity happening in epochs when there supposedly weren't even mammals, let alone humans.
So let's get into the evidence. Segment 1, artifacts that should not exist.
Let's look at the Nampa figurine, for instance.
Oh man, this one is wild. Found in Nampa, Idaho in 1889, right?
Yes. A well-drilling crew was sinking a borehole, and they were using a heavy steel drill inside a cast iron tube to keep the hole from collapsing.
So it's an enclosed environment. Stuff can't just fall in from the surface easily.
Exactly. They drilled down about 300 feet. They went through layers of soil, then a massive layer of solid basalt.
And basalt is cooled volcanic lava, right? It's incredibly hard.
It is. And beneath that basalt, they hit a stratum of clay and quicksand.
And when they brought the sand pump up from that clay layer, out popped this small clay figurine. I've actually seen the sketches of this thing from the archives.
It's quite detailed, isn't it?
It really is. It's tiny, maybe 1.5 inches long, but it's clearly shaped by hands into a human form. It has a head, arms, legs, even faint marks that look like clothing or jewelry.
And what makes it compelling is the geological context. The basalt layer above it dates back to the Pleistocene era.
Which is how old, roughly?
Roughly 2 million years ago.
2 million years.
Furthermore, the figurine had deposits of red iron oxide on it, which perfectly matched the iron oxide found in the deep clay layer it was pulled from.
So it wasn't dropped down the hole by a worker as a prank. It had been resting in that specific chemical environment for a very, very long time.
Exactly. The forensic evidence supports its age.
So 2 million years ago, textbooks say we were barely figuring out how to smash two rocks together in Africa, yet someone in North America was sculpting anatomically correct clay art.
And doing it before a massive volcanic event buried their entire world in lava.
It's chilling. But clay figurines are one thing. I mean, you can mold clay with your hands. The level of implied technology escalates dramatically when we look at the metallurgical anomalies.
Yes, the metalwork is where the timeline really fractures. Consider the coin discovered in Long Ridge, Illinois in 1871.
Wait, let me stop you right there. A coin. Do we mean a round piece of slag that kind of naturally looks like a coin, or do we mean actual minted currency?
An actual minted inscribed coin.
Wow.
It was brought up from an artesian well drill from a depth of 114 feet, and the geological strata at that depth in Illinois date back between 200,000 and 400,000 years.
Okay, so long before Homo sapiens existed, what did this coin look like?
It was a bronze-like alloy. It bore mysterious, indecipherable inscriptions on both sides, figures and hieroglyph-like characters.
So clearly manufactured and stamped.
Yes. But the most crucial detail came from the professional analysis. The coin was examined by William Dubois, who was the assistant assayer at the United States Mint.
So this guy knows coins. He knows how money is made.
Exactly. He presented his findings to the Smithsonian Institution. Dubois noted something very specific. The coin had a perfectly uniform thickness around its edges.
Meaning what? Practically, like in terms of engineering.
His conclusion as a professional assayer was that the metal must have passed through a rolling mill.
A rolling mill. Okay, let's just unpack the mechanics of what that implies for a second. You don't just find a rolling mill in the woods.
No, you certainly don't.
To have a coin of uniform thickness, you need to mine the ore. You need a furnace capable of reaching thousands of degrees to smelt it.
You need an advanced understanding of metallurgy to create the bronze alloy in the first place.
Right. And you need heavy machinery, gears, rollers, intense physical force to flatten the metal evenly.
And finally, you need a complex, structured society that actually requires standardized currency for trade.
Exactly. It implies massive industrialization. And to find that at 400,000 years ago is completely irreconcilable with the standard model of human evolution.
To understand why this is so disruptive, we really have to look at how archaeologists actually use coins in the field today.
Right, because usually finding a coin is an archaeologist's dream scenario.
It is the ultimate dating tool. For example, archaeologists frequently use the Dilepton laduus.
Which is what exactly?
This is a specific, very common bronze coin minted by the Roman prefect Pontius Pilate around the year 30 AD.
Okay, so a Roman coin from the 1st century.
Yes. You'll often hear claims about these specific coins being placed over the eyes of the figure on the Shroud of Turin, referencing a 1st century burial custom.
So if you're digging in a site in Jerusalem and you find a Dilepton laduus in a layer of dirt, you know with absolute certainty that layer is from the 1st century.
Flawlessly. It anchors the timeline. Coins are the pinnacle of chronological tracking because they are mass-produced, widely distributed, and clearly marked by the civilization that made them.
So if they trust a coin in Jerusalem,
then the philosophical question is this. Why do we accept a bronze coin from 30 AD as indisputable proof of a Roman timeline, but when a milled, inscribed bronze-like coin is found in 400,000-year-old strata, the scientific community collectively turns a blind eye?
Because it shatters the glass. It completely ruins the accepted paradigm of human history.
It does. It forces a complete rewrite.
But if you think a 400,000-year-old coin is wild, we have to talk about the coal seams. Because this is where this exploration gets really dark and honestly kind of claustrophobic.
We do. But first, we need to explain exactly what coal is. Coal is not just dark rock, it is fossilized plant matter.
Mostly from the Carboniferous period, right?
Yes. By geological standards, the Carboniferous period occurred roughly 250 to 350 million years ago.
So long, long before the dinosaurs even existed.
Right. The Earth was covered in massive, swampy forests of giant ferns and club mosses. When those plants died, they fell into stagnant, oxygen-poor swamp water, which prevented them from rotting normally.
So they turned into peat.
Exactly. Over millions of years, tectonic shifts buried that peat under layers of sand, clay, and other minerals.
And then the pressure builds up.
Immense weight from the earth above combined with geothermal heat from below. It essentially cooked the peat. It squeezed out the water and gases, concentrating the carbon.
Wow.
That slow, crushing, millions of years long process is how we get the solid seams of bituminous and anthracite coal that we mine today.
Which makes the following discoveries absolutely terrifying from a chronological standpoint. We are talking about anomalous objects found inside solid, unbroken lumps of this ancient coal.
The catalog from the source material is bizarre and extensive.
Tell me about the gold chain.
Right. In 1891, a woman in Morrisonville, Illinois, was breaking up a lump of coal for her stove. The lump split open, and inside was an 8-carat gold chain weighing 8 pennyweights.
And the crucial detail here, the forensic detail, is that the ends of the chain were still embedded securely into the two halves of the coal lump.
Yes, it wasn't something that fell in later or was dropped in the ash.
It had to have been dropped into the peat bog before the plant matter fossilized into rock, hundreds of millions of years ago.
There is also the iron cup found in 1912 in Thomas, Oklahoma.
Another coal anomaly.
Yes. A worker was feeding coal into a furnace, broke a large piece with a sledgehammer, and an iron pot fell out.
An iron pot.
Huh?
Inside the coal.
And it left a perfect impression of itself in the 2 pieces of coal it broke out from. That coal came from the Wilburton mines, which date back 312 million years.
312 million years.
Well,
What else?
We also have a metallic bell found inside West Virginia by bituminous coal, estimated to be 286 to 360 million years old.
A bell, meaning it was designed to make a specific sound.
Yes. And then there's Eve's thimble, which was an iron-molded thimble found inside a coal drift deep inside a bluff in Colorado in 1883.
Millions of years before the first dinosaur evolved, someone drops a molded iron thimble and a gold chain into a swamp, and it turns into coal. It sounds like science fiction.
It definitely challenges everything we think we know.
But there's a story from Heavener, Oklahoma, from the year 1928. And it is just so cinematic, I can't shake it.
The scale of this specific discovery is entirely different.
Right, because we aren't talking about a drop tool or a piece of jewelry anymore.
No, we are talking about architecture.
I want you to try and picture this. Picture being a coal miner in 1928. You are working in a shaft known as Mine Number 5. You are 2 miles deep into the crust of the earth.
The conditions would be brutal.
Yeah, the air is thick with coal dust, it's pitch black beyond your headlamp, and the physical pressure of 2 miles of earth above you is just unimaginable.
And the crew sets off 4 shots of dynamite to open up a new chamber. Room 24.
And when the dust settles the next morning, what do they find in the rubble?
They find these massive blocks lying in the room. Perfect 12-inch cubes.
But they aren't just carved stone, right?
No. The miner reports they were made of a substance resembling concrete, and they were so impossibly smooth and polished that all 6 sides could serve as perfect mirrors.
Imagine shining a miner's lamp onto a silver mirrored block 2 miles underground.
The geometry alone, perfect 12-inch cubes, indicates manufacturing. Nature does not naturally form mirrored, silver-like concrete cubes in ancient coal seams.
So the miner starts to timber up the room to secure the ceiling, but the chamber caves in. He barely escapes with his life.
A very close call.
But when he comes back to inspect the damage, the cave-in has exposed something even crazier. A solid, unbroken wall of these polished, mirror-like blocks.
A literal wall 2 miles underground, predating the dinosaurs.
And what happens next? Do they call the newspapers? Do they rewrite the history books?
No.
No. Another miner strikes the same wall further down the air core, and the mining company immediately pulls the men out of that wing, shuts it down, and swears them to absolute secrecy.
They were there to mine coal, not deal with the existential dread of a pre-human civilization.
It's the ultimate cover-up, just by sheer apathy. Which brings us to perhaps the oldest manufactured object on record in our deep dive today. The Dorchester metallic vase.
Yes. Discovered in Massachusetts in 1852,
Set the scene for us.
crews were blasting rock to make way for a meeting house. They blew apart a massive layer of solid conglomerate rock, and out of the rubble fell a bell-shaped vessel about 4.5 inches high.
And is made of a zinc and silver alloy, right?
Yes. And it was beautifully inlaid with silver floral designs.
Floral design. So we have art.
But here is the mechanism that breaks the timeline. The rock, it was blasted out of the rock sporate conglomerate, dates back roughly 600 million years.
600 million years.
That is the Precambrian era.
Okay, just to visualize that. Standard biology says the Precambrian oceans were barely populated by single-celled organisms, right? Maybe some early sponges or jellyfish.
Exactly. There was virtually no complex life on land. The continents didn't even look the same.
Yet here is physical evidence of artistic metalworkers inlaying silver vines onto a zinc vase in North America.
Now, as analysts of this data, we have to look at this critically.
Right, and I have to interrupt here because we absolutely have to look at the alternative explanation. We have to play devil's advocate for a second. Let's talk about the young coal theory.
It is a vital counterargument. If we are going to question the timeline, we have to question all of it, including how geologists date things in the first place.
Right, so some geologists and maverick thinkers argue that coal doesn't actually take millions of years to form.
They argue that under catastrophic conditions, fossilization and coalification can happen very rapidly.
And they point to the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens in Washington state as proof.
Right. The Mount St. Helens event was highly documented. The massive deforestation caused by the volcanic blast dumped millions of trees into Spirit Lake.
Just an unbelievable amount of timber in the water.
And the volcanic heat and the unique chemical soup caused peat deposits to develop at the bottom of that lake in an unexpectedly short time. We are talking just years, not millennia.
And there is historical evidence of rapid encapsulation as well from our sources. In 1901, a man in Meadhurst, England, found a coin bearing the date 1397, completely encased inside a lump of coal.
A 14th century object inside solid coal.
So what does this actually mean for us? Are these artifacts hundreds of millions of years old, indicating a Precambrian civilization? Or does geology sometimes happen overnight, meaning the Earth can form solid rock and coal around relatively recent artifacts in just a matter of centuries?
This is the crux of the entire forensic contradiction. Notice what happens regardless of which mechanism is true.
Okay, laid out.
If the Earth can form solid coal around a 14th century coin in a few hundred years, then the entire uniformitarian timeline of geology is broken.
Let's unpack that. Elaborate on uniformitarianism.
Uniformitarianism is the scientific assumption that the slow geological processes we see today, like erosion and sediment deposition, have always occurred at that exact same slow rate.
So assuming things always happen at a constant speed.
Exactly. It's how we date the age of the Earth. We look at a canyon and say, the river cuts 1 inch per year, the canyon is a mile deep, so it took millions of years.
But if catastrophic events can create coal or solid rock in decades,
then our entire method of dating the planet and evolutionary history is fundamentally flawed.
So if coal forms fast, science is wrong.
Yes. And conversely, if the geological dating of the Carboniferous period is correct, and coal really does require 300 million years of slow pressure to form, then the presence of an iron cup and a gold chain inside it means our understanding of human history is completely broken.
Because it means intelligent life existed 300 million years ago.
Either way, the textbook timeline is an illusion. The paradigm fails.
That is deeply unsettling. Whether the rock is young or the artifact is impossibly old, the history we were taught is a fiction.
It's a very narrow view of reality.
And if intelligent hands were machining metal vases and building polished mirror walls millions of years ago, we have to ask a bigger question. Where are their cities? If someone is making coins, where is the rolling mill? Where did they live?
When we shift from the micro to the macro, from an isolated thimble to the concept of entire continents, we have to look back at the geological reality we discussed earlier.
Recycling engine.
Yes. The ocean floor was once dry land, and dry land was once the ocean floor. This introduces the hypothesis of cyclical civilizations.
Segment 2. Civilizations before us. The idea that humanity isn't a single upward trajectory, but a cycle of rises and catastrophic falls.
Precisely. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, before plate tectonics was fully understood, scientists proposed the existence of massive lost continents to explain chorological facts.
Chorological meaning the geographical distribution of plants and animals.
Yes, exactly. Biologists would find identical species of lemurs in Madagascar and India, separated by thousands of miles of deep ocean.
And they couldn't exactly swim across the Indian Ocean.
No. To explain how they crossed, the 19th century zoologist Philip Sclater coined the term Lemuria.
Lemuria. I've heard that term in mythology, but it started as a scientific theory.
It did. He hypothesized a massive, now sunken continent that once spanned the Indian Ocean, connecting Africa, India, and stretching across to Australia.
Wow.
The Western Division supposedly connected Borneo, Java, and Sumatra to the Asiatic continent.
We know there was a land bridge connecting Britain to Europe Doggerland, which was swallowed by rising seas. So we were talking about massive, thriving tracts of land that simply sank beneath the waves.
And we can see the geological markers of this cyclical ocean rising clearly today. The Giza Plateau in Egypt is a prime example.
The Giza Plateau, where the pyramids are.
Yes, the bedrock upon which the Great Sphinx and the pyramids are built is incredibly revealing. It is formed from layers of nummulitic limestone.
Okay, what exactly is a nummulite?
A sumulite is a large lens-shaped fossil of a marine organism, a type of foraminifera.
So a tiny sea creature.
Right. Millions of years ago, these tiny single-celled organisms lived in a warm, shallow sea. When they died, their calcium carbonate shells rained down onto the ocean floor.
Just millions of years of shells piling up.
Over immense epochs of time, billions of these shells compacted under pressure to form solid limestone. Later, tectonic forces pushed that ancient ocean floor up to become the dry desert plateau of Giza.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. So when the ancient Egyptians, or whoever originally built the Sphinx, were carving into the bedrock, they were quite literally carving into the compressed, fossilized ocean floor of a much older era.
Exactly. The mightiest structures of our known ancient era are sitting atop the ruins of an oceanic epoch.
It's just layers upon layers. But the real kicker is what we find when we look closely at the modern ocean floor. Because we aren't just finding ancient mud or sunken lemur habitats, we are finding anomalous megaliths.
Structures that completely defy our understanding of what hunter-gatherers were capable of building.
Let's talk about Nanmadol.
Nanmadol is perhaps the most striking example. It is a ruined city located adjacent to the eastern shore of the island of Pohnpei in the Caroline Islands, in the western Pacific Ocean.
The parts of it above water are impressive enough, but divers have gone down and found dozens of massive, upright basalt columns and pillars rising from the seabed.
These columns weigh up to 10 tons each.
10 tons underwater.
And they are arranged in deliberate geometric double rows stretching over 100 feet underwater.
Now, basalt can naturally form into columns as lava cools and contracts, right?
Right.
Like the Giant's Causeway in Ireland.
Yes, that is a natural geological process. But natural cooling does not arrange 10-ton columns into perfectly spaced double rows. That requires engineering.
And heavy lifting.
And if we apply basic geology and glacial melt models, the last time those specific columns would have been on dry land was approximately 12,000 years ago, before the melting at the end of the Pleistocene epoch caused major rises in global ocean levels.
12,000 years ago. And the sheer logistics of moving that stone is staggering. Our sources estimate that whoever built the visible portion of Neanderthal moved 250 million tons of basalt.
That is an astronomical amount of material.
250 million tons? By a civilization that 12,000 years ago was supposedly just figuring out how to weave baskets and plant wheat. It just doesn't add up.
But the anomalies go much deeper than 100 feet. Let's examine the Milne-Edward Trench account.
Oh, this one. This one sounds like straight science fiction.
In 1966, scientists aboard an American oceanographic research ship were conducting a survey off the coast of Peru. They were looking for deep water marine life, specifically rare mollusks.
So they weren't looking for ruins.
Not at all. They sent cameras down into an underwater canyon at a crushing depth of 6,000 feet.
6,000 feet underwater. That is well over a mile deep. The hydrostatic pressure down there is like over 2,600 pounds per square inch. It would instantly crush a human. There is absolutely no sunlight.
And standing upright on the muddy bottom at that crushing depth, the camera captured rows of carved stone columns.
Columns. A mile underwater.
They were evidently man-made, about 2 feet in diameter. And the most shocking detail, the video feed clearly showed a hieroglyphic-like character carved into one of the columns.
Wait, really? A hieroglyph?
Yes. The expedition's sonar also pinged massive geometric mounds nearby, highly suggestive of silt-covered ruins of buildings.
A city, or a ceremonial complex, resting a mile underwater. It just boggles the mind to consider the mechanics of how it got there.
It implies a geological event of terrifying proportions.
Right, because either the continental shelf collapsed catastrophically and sank a mile into the abyss, or sea levels were once drastically different. Either way, it implies a tectonic or climatic catastrophe of global proportions that wiped this civilization out.
We see similar mysteries with the Yonaguni Monument in Japan, discovered by a diver in the 1980s.
This is a massive stone structure just off the coast of the Ryukyu Islands. It looks like a gigantic underwater stepped pyramid or ziggurat. It measures 240 feet long, 90 feet wide, and 45 feet high.
Mainstream geologists often argue that Yonaguni is a natural formation. Of course they do.
They cite the tendency of local sandstones to fracture along natural joint planes, creating flat surfaces and step-like shapes due to tectonic activity and water erosion.
And sure, rocks break in straight lines sometimes. But we are talking about perfectly stepped terraces, 6 feet high on each level. We're talking about a paved stone road running alongside it under the ocean.
The geometry is highly suspicious.
And the most haunting detail, a massive stone formation attached to the complex that looks undeniably like a giant human head, complete with facial features resembling the Moai statues of Easter Island.
Nature very rarely carves perfectly stepped 240-foot monuments with faces on them.
I mean, come on, it forces us to synthesize the data.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, civilizations may rise and fall like tides, leaving only fragments in the deep.
But to build those stepped monuments, or to machine a zinc vase 600 million years ago, or to engineer 250 million tons of basalt in the Pacific, you need builders.
You need intelligent hands.
Right. But if they weren't us, if they weren't anatomically modern Homo sapiens, who were they? This brings us to segment 3, a crucial piece of the puzzle. Evolutionary divergence.
The splinter species.
We have to look at the fossil record, which reveals a shattered, splintered family tree of advanced hominids.
Let's go back to that chronological problem we established at the beginning. The idea that Homo sapiens are the peak of a single straight line of evolution.
That linear model has been unraveling for decades in the scientific community. Standard paleontological models now accept that Homo erectus lived from roughly 1.8 million years ago all the way down to perhaps 70,000 years ago in some regions.
Which means what exactly?
This means they overlapped significantly with modern humans. There is immense debate regarding the interbreeding of various hominid species. We know for a fact, through modern genetics, that early humans interbred with Neanderthals and Denisovans.
Many people today actually carry their DNA.
Exactly.
We have ghost populations in our genetic code. Evidence of unknown hominid species that we mated with, but whose fossils we haven't even found yet.
This supports the regionalism theory, which proposes that different species of highly developed hominids evolved more or less simultaneously and independently in different parts of the globe.
They didn't just conquer one another in a straight line. They coexisted, traded, and interbred.
And if they could interbreed, they could exchange genes, mutations, and potentially technology.
But the fossils we occasionally pull out of the ground don't always fit into the neat, categorized boxes of Erectus, Neanderthal, or Sapiens. In fact, the archaeological record is full of suppressed skeletal anomalies. It's like a fantasy casting call is buried right under our feet.
We are talking about extremes in human physiology. Giants, for lack of a better scientific term, and on the opposite end of the spectrum, pygmies.
I want to ask you, the listener, to pause and picture walking through a dense North American forest 200,000 years ago. Who or what would you actually meet? Because based on these skeletal anomalies from the source documents, it wouldn't just be primitive cavemen huddled around a fire.
No, it would be much more diverse. In 1871, a newspaper described a discovery made about 40 miles west of Niagara Falls in Ontario.
Okay, what did they find?
Two men, Messrs. Wardell and Frydenberg, were digging on a farm. 5 or 6 feet down, they struck a massive ossuary. They found roughly 200 human skeletons piled in deliberate layers.
And the defining characteristic wasn't just the sheer number of bodies, but their size.
Yes, they were described as massive, far exceeding the average height of a modern human.
But that is just one isolated farm in Canada. Let's look at Athens, Ohio, in 1905.
A county highway crew was working on Harmony Road. They uncovered a burial mound that contained 32 skeletons.
And this was not just a hole in the dirt, right? The mound itself was engineered.
Highly engineered. It was covered in a foot-thick layer of plastic clay mixed with gravel, which essentially created a waterproof seal over the tomb.
And the roof of this burial chamber was supported by clay columns, the diameter of a barrel, set in sections on top of each other.
That is structural engineering. That is architecture meant to last.
But the bodies inside.
The physical description of the remains is what truly stands out. As is often the case with incredibly ancient bones, when they were exposed to the outside air, all but one skeleton rapidly oxidized and disintegrated into dust.
Just crumbled away.
Yes. But the one intact skeleton was measured and estimated to be between 8 and 9 feet tall.
9 feet tall.
And the jawbone was so massive that a worker on the site found he could fit it completely over his own jaw and face like a mask.
Imagine the biomechanics of an 8 to 9 foot human. The square cube law in physics dictates that as an object grows in size, its volume and weight increase much faster than its surface area.
They would be incredibly heavy.
Right. A 9-foot human would need incredibly dense bones and massive musculature just to stand upright without their knees collapsing. They would look unbelievably powerful.
And beneath that main group of 32 skeletons, 15 feet down into the earth, the crew found a hard clay box-like structure that they never even opened.
Wait, they never opened it?
No, they paved right over it. It supposedly still lies under Harmony Road today.
Unbelievable.
We see similar familial groupings in the Minnesota Bird Mound, excavated in 1897.
Oh, the bird mound. The mound itself featured this massive outline of a bird made from stones on the surface. And inside, they found a male who was fully 9 feet tall and a female measuring 8 feet 4 inches.
And they were locked in a close embrace.
The archaeological accounts describe it as a deeply tragic posture. It looked as if the mother had drawn an infant to her bosom just before death came to them all.
It's an incredibly human moment, frozen in time, involving beings of towering stature.
It really connects you to them. But the giants aren't just found in dirt mounds near the surface. Let's go back into the deep earth. In 1881, a crew sinking a coal shaft 3 miles from Ashley, Pennsylvania, hit a depth of 475 feet.
We are back in the Carboniferous coal seams.
Right. They blast a hole to widen the shaft, and the foreman goes down to check the stability. He clears the rubble and finds a solid mass of rock bearing the perfect, fossilized impression of a giant humanoid shape.
A fossilized impression.
Yeah, the limbs, muscles, and ligaments were perfectly apparent in the rock. The dimensions. 12 feet in length,
12 feet.
4 feet across the chest. And across the breast was the impression of a huge shield, while the right hand clutched the broken butt end of a large cutlass or sword.
A 12-foot giant, armed with a sword, entombed in solid rock 475 feet underground. This raises an important question regarding our genetic heritage.
What's that?
Well, if geneticists agree that humans and Neanderthals shared a common ancestor roughly 660,000 years ago, and these incredibly diverse, massive skeletal anomalies exist alongside us in the Earth, what does the true evolutionary tree actually look like?
It's got to be a tangled web.
And
And the splintering didn't just go in the direction of giants, the divergence went the other way, too. Let's talk about the pygmies.
in 1932, a pair of gold prospectors were blasting the granite walls of a gulch in the Pedro Mountains, about 60 miles southwest of Casper, Wyoming.
Prospecting for gold, finding something way weirder.
The blast opened up a small, sealed cave inside the solid granite. Sitting on a ledge inside was a mummified figure.
The description of this mummy is fascinating. It was sitting cross-legged with its hands folded quietly in its lap, looking exactly like a tiny, timeless Buddha statue.
The physical morphology was highly specific and totally distinct from modern humans. It had brown, deeply wrinkled skin, a flat nose, a low sloping forehead, and a broad, thin-lipped mouth.
And the size.
The entire mummified adult figure was exactly 14 inches tall.
14 inches. I mean, we know insular dwarfism is a real biological mechanism. We found Homo floresensis, the hobbits in Indonesia, who are about 3.5 feet tall.
Yes, they evolved to be small because they were trapped on an island with limited resources.
But a 14-inch hominid sealed in a granite cave in Wyoming.
Puzzled scientists at the time theorized it was a mummified pygmy, perhaps given a ceremonial burial by an unknown culture. X-rays taken later revealed a perfectly formed miniature human skeleton inside, complete with a broken collarbone.
The sheer diversity of intelligent hominid life on this planet seems to have been vastly wider and more complex than we are taught. We share the Earth today with absolutely no other species of our genus. We are completely alone.
It is a unique state in geological history.
But the physical evidence suggests that for millions of years, the Earth was heavily populated by splinter species. Giants, pygmies, advanced Denisovan-like beings who built underwater monuments, forged zinc vases, and lived alongside one another.
Which leads us to the inevitable, most sobering question of this entire analysis. If these highly advanced, incredibly diverse civilizations existed across the globe, what wiped them out?
Exactly.
What mechanism erased the giants, the pygmies, and the prehistoric ocean dwellers so thoroughly that we barely remember them?
The trauma of their end didn't just leave physical fossils in the rock. It left psychological fossils in our minds. And that takes us into segment 4, the memory of cataclysm.
When modern academia looks at ancient myths, stories of global floods, fire raining from the heavens, continents sinking into the sea, the tendency is to view them as primitive fiction.
Just fairy tales.
At best, they are seen as allegories for localized, seasonal river flooding. But a forensic analysis of the geology urges us to treat these myths as encoded, fossilized memories of deep-time catastrophes that wiped the slate clean.
It's the ultimate reset button. The Earth's conveyor belt speeds up and destroys everything on top of it. Let's look at the hard geological evidence for these resets, because they aren't just myths.
Consider the research of Richard B. Firestone and William Topping regarding the Great Lakes Basin in North America, specifically Michigan, Ontario, Erie, and Superior.
Okay, what were they looking at?
They investigated the archaeological and geological record from roughly 12,500 years ago, a period known as the Younger Dryas.
This is a widely debated period where the Earth was coming out of an ice age, getting warmer, and then suddenly, violently plunged back into freezing temperatures for over 1,000 years.
Firestone and Topping found evidence of what they called the Paleo-Indian catastrophe. Their research suggests the entire Great Lakes region was subjected to massive particle bombardment and catastrophic nuclear-level irradiation.
Explain what that actually means in the dirt. How do you find a nuclear anomaly from 12,000 years ago?
They analyzed the sediment and found unusually large quantities of plutonium-239 as well as highly altered natural uranium ratios.
And plutonium doesn't just happen naturally, right?
No. Plutonium-239 is practically non-existent in nature. It is a byproduct of nuclear fission or intense cosmic irradiation. They theorized this anomaly could only be the result of a massive cosmic impact, like a fragmented comet, or the intense radiation from a relatively nearby supernova.
The physical energy released by an event like that is just hard to fathom. The model state it could have heated the atmosphere over Michigan to over 1,000 degrees Celsius instantly.
The neutron flux, which is a storm of highly energetic subatomic particles at northern locations, would have been catastrophic.
The radiation exposure to the flora and fauna on the ground would have been lethal. The researchers compared the radiation dosage to standing inside a 5-megawatt nuclear reactor for more than 100 seconds.
That is apocalyptic.
It really is. I want to put a visual to it to understand how this wiped the continent clean. 12,500 years ago, North America was covered by the Laurentide ice sheet, which was up to 2 miles thick in some places. Picture a barrage of superheated comet fragments slamming into a 2-mile thick glacier at 40,000 miles an hour.
The kinetic energy transfers into heat instantly.
Exactly. The ice doesn't just melt, it flash boils. The instant vaporization of millions of tons of ice creates a massive canopy of steam in the atmosphere. This mixes with the ash and dust from the impact to create a toxic vapor cloud that blocks out the sun, plunging the Earth into a volcanic winter.
And the ice that didn't vaporize melted into continent-altering super tsunamis. We call them glacial outburst floods, or yokulaups.
Torrents of freezing water, hundreds of feet high, careering through valleys, tearing up the topsoil, and changing the topography forever.
This unimaginable volume of floodwater reached the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico, disrupting the ocean currents and causing global sea levels to rise violently and rapidly.
This isn't just theory. You can see the geological scars of these floods today. Look at Lake Bonneville in Utah, a massive prehistoric lake. About 14,500 years ago, an ice dam breached at Red Rock Pass. The resulting flood literally carved out the Snake River Canyon in a matter of weeks.
We have the Missoula floods in Montana, which gouged out the channeled scablands. Thousands of square miles of solid basalt bedrock stripped bare by water.
And we see similar catastrophic marine flooding globally, such as the Black Sea deluge hypothesis around 5600 BCD, where the Mediterranean Sea breached the Bosporus sill and flooded a massive freshwater lake, displacing whoever lived on its shores.
Furthermore, this rapid sea level rise would have drowned every low-lying landmass in its path,
Including the former Bahamian landmass in the Greater Antilles, Cuba, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico. When you look at the bathymetry of the Caribbean, you can see how much land was lost.
It was a massive geographical shift.
And what does a continent-sized landmass sinking beneath the waves sound like? It is the exact origin of the Atlantis myth recorded by the Greek philosopher Plato.
He described an advanced island empire destroyed by earthquakes and floods in a single day and night of misfortune, occurring roughly 9,000 years before his time.
Which perfectly aligns with the Younger Dryas impacts.
The trauma of these cyclical resets is burned into the global memory. It's not just a Greek myth.
Right, there are others.
The Finnish epic, the Kalevala, describes a terrifying epoch when the earth turned round like a potter's wheel. The Egyptian papyrus Epure laments a time of utter chaos when the sun set where it rose.
These are descriptions of massive atmospheric distortion, or perhaps even a pole shift, altering the apparent rotation of the sky.
And it wasn't a one-time event. The physical reality of these repeating climate shifts is recorded deep in the earth. Consider the massive quarry on the outskirts of Brno, Moravia in Europe.
What's at that quarry?
That site is a perfect chronological record. Workers uncovered a 160-foot deep sequence of multiple soil cycles. By analyzing the layers, geologists found that they reflect cyclical 1,200-year mini ice ages.
And the most terrifying part of that quarry isn't the ice, it's the dust. Midway through each of these 1,200-year cycles, there are thick bands of loess, which is fine, wind-blown dust.
The mechanics of lowest deposition require monstrous storms of continental scale. Dust storms that shrouded the Earth for weeks or months, completely blotting out the sun.
This created a refrigerating effect, a natural nuclear winter. The climate became so arid and dry that massive rivers simply vanished into the dust.
Synthesizing this data, we realize that dismissing ancient myths solely as metaphors is a failure of scientific imagination.
When the Mayan Popol Vuh describes fiery hail falling from heaven, or when global cultures universally describe a great world-ending flood, they aren't writing fiction.
They are providing the surviving forensic records of civilizations systematically erased by cyclical time.
It is the psychological scar tissue of the human race. I try to picture the actual survivors. The people who lived through the sky burning, the tsunamis washing away their coastal cities, the temples collapsing into the mud. We know some of them survived.
Yes, the archaeological record mentions cultures like the Kunda or post-Swadarian peoples, who were complex hunter-gatherers living between 9500 BCE and 5000 BCE around the Baltic Sea.
Their largest excavated cemetery is at southern Reindeer Island in Lake Onega, Russia.
And what is totally unique about their burials?
They didn't just bury their dead with weapons or jewelry. They buried them with substantial numbers of bird bones. Specifically, the wings of whooper swans.
It's a highly symbolic, almost desperate gesture.
These survivors were carrying the trauma, the memory, and the fragmented, broken knowledge of the old, advanced world into a harsh new Stone Age. They were burying their dead with wings, looking up at the sky, maybe dreaming of a time before the heavens fell on them.
It represents a profound psychological yearning for a lost epoch.
So if we take a step back and look at the entire board, with the linear timeline shattered, the out-of-place artifacts validated, the evolutionary splinter species acknowledged, and the cyclical cataclysms verified, what does this leave us with today?
It forces a total reevaluation of our place in the world.
It really does.
When you synthesize the sheer volume of forensic contradictions we've discussed, the 2 million-year-old clay figurine, the industrial milled coins from 400,000 years ago, the gold chains and polished mirrors buried in Carboniferous coal seems older than the dinosaurs, the 12-foot giants and 14-inch pygmies, the encoded mythic trauma of nuclear-level cosmic impacts. The ultimate realization is clear. The timeline we were taught is an illusion.
Mainstream science heavily resists these anomalies because accepting them requires dismantling the entire foundational framework of modern geology and anthropology. It's easier to throw the 400,000-year-old coin in a drawer than it is to rewrite the textbooks.
But critical thinking demands that we look at the data no matter how uncomfortable it is. Humanity's history is not a beginning. It is merely a continuation.
We are just the latest inhabitants to set up camp in a very old, very haunted house. And I want to leave you with a completely new application of this concept, something to really make your head spin regarding our own future. One of the archaeological principles we discussed earlier involves multi-period sites. Think about the Qumran settlement where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found.
The concept of bioturbation, or human mixing of strata.
Right. It is notoriously difficult for archaeologists to date these multi-period sites. Why? Because later inhabitants, when they move in and build new foundations or dig latrines or excavate defensive trenches, they constantly churn up the older strata.
They physically dig up the earth and mix ancient Roman coins and 3,000-year-old pottery in with the newer dirt.
Exactly. The archaeologists have to rely on the latest artifacts to date the stratum because the old is helplessly mixed with the new.
It is a standard complication. The Earth's layers do not stay perfectly flat when intelligent life is digging into them.
Now take that exact mechanism and scale it up to us, modern humanity. Think about what we do to the Earth's crust today. We strip mine entire continents. We drill miles into the ocean floor to extract oil. We bore tunnels through bedrock and bury reinforced steel bunkers deep inside mountains.
We are churning up the Earth's strata on a planetary industrialized scale.
We are mixing the layers faster and deeper than any civilization before us.
The implications of that thought experiment are staggering.
If the cyclical nature of time holds true, and a cataclysm hits tomorrow, a cosmic impact, a pole shift, a supervolcano, and the conveyor belt of the Earth folds over, burying our cities under 1 million years of rock, what will the next intelligent splinter species find when they inevitably evolve and dig into the Earth?
They will find our artifacts hopelessly mixed with ancient strata.
Will they dig up a crushed silicon microchip that we accidentally embedded into a layer of 300 million-year-old coal during a mining operation?
It's entirely possible.
And when their archaeologists find an iPhone encased in a Carboniferous rock layer, will their scientists just call it an out-of-place artifact and throw it in a drawer to protect their own linear timeline?
Human nature suggests they might.
Will they look at the rusted, fossilized grid of a Manhattan skyscraper buried in mud and just call it an anomalous natural crystal growth?
It perfectly highlights the ultimate arrogance of our era. Assuming that we are the absolute pinnacle and the finality of the Earth's long story.
That's the image I want to leave you with. I want you to imagine an ancient, towering city, a civilization of 10-foot giants or ocean builders, entirely engulfed by a catastrophic wave of fire and water. And if you picture that destruction, realize that the ruined city is reflecting right there in your own eye. Because it's not just their past, it might be our future. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. Stay curious.